let us bring in the moderator of Meet the Press and our political director as well, Chuck Todd. Always good to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Let's start with the news of the morning, this idea that the president wants to rescind with a stroke of a pen birthright citizenship, the news that he wants to send some 5,200 troops to the border. Are those serious policy moves, or is this about just riling up the base?
It's hard not to look at it through a prism of the election, considering when the election is. It's hard to take the birthright citizenship proposal as a serious proposal when he talks about it as an executive order, when it just can't be done. That's not a way to do it. This is a constitutional amendment. If he were serious about it, then he would unveil today the campaign to get it passed in 35 plus state legislatures and how to get 2/3 of Congress and all of those things that you need to do to actually get a constitutional amendment passed. So, you know, it is what it is. This is the last week of the campaign, and for 3 weeks now, he has desperately tried to get immigration as the front page story. And when other things get in the way, he's complained about it, as he did during the pipe bombs. And so you do feel as if first he tried, I'll send troops to the border. Oh, that hasn't gotten it on the front page. Now it's like, now I want to try birthright citizenship. Maybe that will. I think he is desperately looking for a reaction on the left to fire up the right on immigration. We'll see if it works, but this feels like throwing mud at the wall.
And as we're having this conversation, word that perhaps unsurprisingly, the senior senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, says he's going to be introducing legislation along the same lines as the proposed executive order from President Trump. There's Senator Graham there just a few moments ago. So it seems as if they are at least serious about continuing.
They want to create a perception of a strategy here, because there is no there is no constitutional method to the executive order. It is a ruse. There's nothing more. I mean, it is not. If he were serious, he would, again, propose constitutional amendment or even legislation. It took Lindsey Graham to try to make it seem more serious by saying he'd introduce legislation.
Let's talk about Beto O'Rourke in Texas. This is, to me at least, the most fascinating race so far. Here's a guy who has raised wheelbarrow loads of money. A lot of that money coming from enclaves in and around New York City and other major metropolitan areas. He's raised a ton of money. Hasn't led in a single poll, to my knowledge, and right now it looks like he's still outside the margin. Does Beto O'Rourke have a shot?
Here's the thing. I think one of the mistakes many reporters make is they get been there, done that disease. Right? Which is you go, well, that Democrat can't win in Texas, and there's all this or that. So I think you look, so you have to, I think as a reporter, look at the metrics on the ground. That said, it does feel like he may come up short for this reason. When I went down there, there's clearly not enough effort has been made to register the unregistered Latino population that's down there. The resources that was necessary to put into that haven't been put into that. I've talked to some who wish there had been more effort and worry that this is a race that may be decided by less than 5 points. And if you decide by less than 5 points, then you say, where did they come up short? Where they may come up short is just simply motivating Latino voters both to the polls and getting a registration campaign. That said, I want to remind people in 1994, that big wave year, Mario Cuomo was somebody that everybody knew was in a real race, just like Ted Cruz, but everybody thought, well, there's no way he'd actually lose. He couldn't lose. It'll be close, but he won't actually lose. Well, he lost too. So one thing to keep in mind, on wave elections, and I think the ground is shifting under our feet right now with the incidents over the last 96 hours and the president's response to them. Don't rule anything out. There may be only a 1 in 10 chance, but that's a high probability when you consider where things stand in the state of Texas normally.
You think that the president's performance over the last few days is going to galvanize voters here in the next?
Look, I think you feel the shifting. I've talked to, it's not me thinking this. I've talked to pollsters on the ground who are the ones daily, nightly tracking. We're in the middle of a move. The question is, what does that fully look like? It looks like it's a move towards the Democrats. You see some new public polling that indicates that. But over the weekend, this did not poll well at all on the right. The reaction to it. The question is that something that sustains? Is the president steady the Republican base a little bit today when he goes to Pittsburgh? I think that's there's a his behavior and performance today matter a lot, I think, to Republicans that are on the ballot.
That would sort of jibe with the president's latest polling. Approval down 4 points. He's at 40% right now, as you know. Disapproval up an equal amount. Bottom line is net disapproval has gone from 6 points to 14 points. Safe to say the president's a significant drag on many of these races.
I think he is. There's plenty of evidence to show. What is interesting here is this decision by the president to insert himself even more so into these races, into this final stretch. I've noticed some reporters are saying it's just like what he did in 16. No, it's not. It's the exact opposite. In 16, at this point in time, Kellyanne Conway, who was the campaign manager, somehow wrestled his Twitter feed away from him, kept him from going off the cuff. He was the most on message he ever was in the last week of the campaign, not causing controversy, not tweeting stuff that would sort of rile people up left, right, and center.
Yeah.
He is closing as if it's, as somebody said today, as if this is a primary campaign, not a general election campaign. We'll see how this plays with a general electorate.
If this president is forced to work with a Democratic House and or Senate, what does that look like from a legislative standpoint? Is it even more gridlock than we have now, or would the president then perhaps move back to some semblance of a center?
I think it depends on what that looks like. If it's a Republican Senate and a Democratic House and President Trump, I think it's heavy on gridlock. If somehow Democrats wrestle control of the Senate, then I think there is going to be a burden on Democrats to do some governing. Infrastructure is someplace they can get to. Maybe it's even cutting a deal on immigration. But I do think it depends on what does that look like. If it's 1-1-1, where you sort of have the president, a Republican senator in a Democratic House, I think that's a recipe for nothing getting done and positioning for 2020. But if one party has them both, the House and Senate, I think the burden on Democrats would be to find ways to do something with this president.
What are you looking for come election night? Seven days away. What are we looking for?
I think the most interesting thing is the voter that held their nose, the Republican voter that didn't like Donald Trump but held their nose and voted for him because they felt as if this was the alternative. They couldn't live with the alternative. This voter, this time, Donald Trump's still president regardless of what happens on Election Day. What does that Republican who doesn't like his tone, who doesn't like his style, but is happy with tax cuts, is happy with some of this stuff, do they want to send a message? It's a free message for those voters this time. It was not a free message 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you had to make a choice, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. This time, it's Donald Trump with a Republican Congress or Donald Trump with a Democratic or a split Congress. And I think that is a danger if you're a Republican, because those last-minute Republican voters who don't like the president, they may not feel as if it's a life or death type of vote for them this time, and they may feel it's a free vote to punish or send a message to the president.
Chuck Todd, always enjoy the insights, sir. Thank you.
All right, Chris.
Thanks for coming back.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.